My brother died at 16, or so I thought. I was 6 years old when my brother Raphael passed away. Or at least that's what my parents told me for the last 20 years of my life. Motorcycle accident, instant passing, unrecognizable body, closed casket burial. A tragedy that marked our family forever, in which no one ever spoke about without tears in their eyes. I grew up visiting his grave every birthday. I grew up hearing my mother cry in his room, which remained untouched like a shrine. I grew up believing that my only brother had passed away at 16, taking with him all the plans and dreams he had for the future. Until the day of my father's funeral. It was a rainy Tuesday in March. My father had passed away from pancreatic cancer after an 8-month battle. I was at the wake receiving condolences from distant relatives and work friends of his that I had never met. My mother was sitting in the first row, supported by my aunts, a handkerchief twisted in her trembling hands. That's when I saw a man on the other side of the room. He was leaning against the back wall, wearing a simple black suit, hands in his pockets, brown hair with some gray strands at the temples, unshaven, eyes red as if he had been crying recently or hadn't slept in days. He was watching me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Our eyes met, and he started walking in my direction. My heart raced without me understanding why. There was something familiar about him, something in the way he walked, in the shape of his face, in the greenish-brown eyes that I had only seen in one person in my life. He stopped half a meter from me. His eyes were watery, and then he said the 7 words that would completely destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. "Hey bro, it's me. It's Raphael." I couldn't process what he had just said. My brain simply refused the information. What was all that came out of my mouth in a hoarse whisper? People around us started looking at us. My Aunt Claudia, who was nearby, widened her eyes and turned pale as paper. "I know it's hard to believe," he continued, his voice low but firm. "I know what they told you, but I didn't pass away, Lucas. I never did. They sent me away. My legs failed. I had to lean against the wall. This doesn't make sense. You passed away. I went to your funeral. My voice broke. I visited your grave every year." Raphael, if it was really him, ran his hand over his face in a gesture of deep exhaustion. "There's nothing in that grave, Lucas. Just dirt. They faked everything. If this story is already blowing your mind, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Would you confront your parents in this situation? Keep watching because this gets even more intense." He took something from his jacket pocket, an old brown leather wallet. He opened it and showed me the ID. Rafael Enrique Almeida Santos. Date of birth, April 14th, 1988. The same birth date as my brother. But what made me stagger was the next photo he showed me. An old, faded photo of 2 boys. A teenager about 15 years old holding a baby. The teenager was identical to the man in front of me, just 20 years younger. And the baby? The baby was me. I recognized the blue blanket, the same one my mother kept in a box in the closet, saying it was the only thing she had of both sons together. How? I couldn't form complete sentences. My world was crumbling to pieces around me. Aunt Claudia had run off toward my mother. I saw it as if I were watching a movie in slow motion. My mother turning her head, seeing Raphael, and literally fainting in her chair. The wake exploded into chaos. People running, someone screaming to call an ambulance. My cousin Julia crying hysterically, and Raphael and I stood facing each other, connected by 20 years of lies and a truth that was just beginning to emerge. My uncle Roberto, my father's brother, approached. He looked at Raphael with a mixture of shock and something else, recognition. "My God," he whispered. "Raphael, you're alive?" Raphael nodded. "Hi, Uncle Beto. It's been a while, but your father said you had." Uncle Roberto stopped, his eyes widening in comprehension. He lied. All these years. He lied. His voice was rising, attracting more attention. More relatives approaching, murmurs spreading through the room like wildfire. Raphael took a deep breath and said loud enough for several people to hear. "My father paid me 200,000 Brazilian reals to disappear from the family. He sent me away when I was 16 because he discovered I was attracted to men. He gave me money, false documents, and said that if I came back, he would make sure I never saw my brother again. So they pretended I had passed away and went on with their lives as if I had never existed." The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear people's breathing, the creaking of chairs, the distant sound of rain hitting the windows. And then my mother, who had regained consciousness, began to sob so loudly it sounded like screams. In the next 20 minutes, my father's wake became something completely different. It was no longer about mourning. It was about truths being exposed, decades-old secrets being forcibly pulled from the shadows. They took my mother to a side room, and I followed with Raphael behind me, several uncles and aunts accompanying us. My mother was sitting on an old sofa, trembling, her face buried in her hands. When Raphael entered the room, she looked up and made a sound I'll never forget, half sob, half moan of pain. You shouldn't have come, she said, her voice broken. You promised never to come back. He passed away, Mom, Raphael responded, and the word Mom came out crooked, full of hurt. I thought I had the right to at least see the casket of the man who destroyed my life. He turned to me, and I thought my brother deserved to know the truth before it was too late. I finally found my voice. Is someone going to explain to me what's happening right now? My mother wiped her eyes and looked at me with an expression of guilt so deep I could feel it physically. Lucas, it was all for your own good. For my own good. I exploded. You made me believe my brother was gone. I spent 20 years mourning a loss that never happened. How was that for my own good? Aunt Claudia put her hand on my shoulder, but I pulled away. I didn't want to be consoled. I wanted answers. Raphael sat heavily in a chair, as if his legs could no longer bear his weight. I'm going to tell everything from the beginning. He looked at my mother. And you're going to let me. Without interrupting, without lying anymore. My mother closed her eyes and nodded in defeat. I was 15 when I started dating Pedro, Raphael began. We met at English class. He was funny, intelligent, made me feel seen. For the first time in my life, I felt complete. We dated in secret for almost a year. He paused, his hands trembling slightly. One day, his father caught us being affectionate in his room. He made a scene, called our dad, threatened to sue, said I had corrupted his son. Dad came to pick me up in that way. Silent, jaw locked. That silence that was worse than any shouting. I remembered that silence. My father rarely shouted, but when he got silent in that specific way, you knew something very bad was about to happen. When we got home, he locked me in my room. 3 days. 3 days without leaving, eating only what he left at the door. On the 4th day, he came in with a proposal. Raphael swallowed hard. He said I had 2 options. Option 1, go to a clinic that cured people with same-gender attraction. Basically, torture disguised as conversion therapy. My mother sobbed louder. Raphael continued relentlessly. Option 2, accept 200,000 Brazilian reals, documents with a new name, and disappear. Never see the family again, never contact anyone. And they would say I had passed away to spare the family from shame. Those were his exact words. I was 16 years old. I was terrified. I thought maybe it would be better to disappear than to be tortured in that place. So I accepted. He looked at me with eyes full of tears. The hardest part was leaving you, bro. You were only 6 years old. You followed me around the house. You said you wanted to be like me when you grew up. And I abandoned you. My throat was so tight I could barely breathe. You didn't abandon me. You were expelled, forced. The words came out broken, interspersed with sobs I couldn't control. 20 years of grief transformed into 20 years of anger in a matter of minutes. How did you fake the funeral? Uncle Roberto asked, his voice full of disbelief. I was there. I saw the casket. He stopped, comprehension dawning. There was no body, was there? My mother shook her head negatively, unable to speak. Raphael answered for her. They said it was a motorcycle accident, that the body was unrecognizable, closed casket, immediate cremation by family request. No one questioned it, because tragedies happen, and because no one imagines that parents would do something like this. I questioned it. A voice said from the door. It was Aunt Helena, my mother's sister. I asked if I could see the body. They told me there was no body to see. I insisted. Your father threatened to cut ties if I continued spreading doubts at a time of mourning. She entered the room, eyes fixed on Raphael. I knew. Deep down, I knew something was wrong, but I let it go. Forgive me. Raphael nodded, but said nothing. Aunt Helena approached and hugged him, both of them crying. More people entered the room. Cousins, close family friends, all wanting to understand what was happening. The story was being retold, details being added. The money. I suddenly asked. The 200,000. What did you do with it? Raphael gave a bitter smile. I survived. I changed cities, states. I managed to finish high school with a false name. I went to college. I built a life. I met my husband 10 years ago. We have an adopted daughter who's 5 years old. The word husband made my mother visibly flinch. Raphael noticed. Yes, Mom. Husband. I got married. I'm happy. Despite you. Despite everything you did. He took out his phone and showed the lock screen. A photo of him with another man and a smiling little girl between them. I took the phone with a trembling hand. The girl had Raphael's eyes. Same smile. What's her name? I asked, my voice hoarse. Sophia. Sophia Almeida Costa. Raphael responded softly. She's the age you were when I left. 6 years old. Every time I look at her, I think of you, of the brother I was forced to abandon. Something inside me completely broke at that moment. I cried. I cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was a child. For everything we lost. For the 20 stolen years. For the memories we never made. For the birthdays, Christmases, graduations. For a niece I never knew. For a brother who was erased from existence because he dared to love someone of the same gender. The funeral happened 3 hours later in a completely surreal atmosphere. Half the people didn't know what had happened. The other half couldn't stop looking at Raphael as if he were really a resurrected ghost. We stood side by side, Raphael and I, as our father's casket descended. When the pastor asked if anyone wanted to say a few words, Raphael stepped forward. People murmured in shock. He stood at the grave's edge for a long moment before starting to speak. My father passed away to me 20 years ago, he said, his voice firm. On the day he gave me money and told me to disappear because who I loved wasn't acceptable. He chose pride and prejudice over his own son. So I'm not going to stand here pretending I'm mourning. I'm not. The shock was palpable. My mother was openly sobbing. Some distant relatives started to to leave, offended. Raphael continued, but I came here for my brother, because Lucas deserved to know the truth, deserved to have the chance that was denied to me, the chance to choose, to decide for himself if he wanted to know me, to accept me as I am. He looked at me, and I hope he chooses to give me that chance. He turned to walk back through the crowd, but I followed him. On the way, we passed by Raphael's empty grave, the one I visited every year. We stopped in front of it. Rafael Enrique Almeida Santos, 1988 to 2004. Beloved son, dear brother. Beloved son, Raphael read aloud, bitterly. What a joke. He kicked the headstone lightly. I'm going to ask them to remove this. I don't want my name on a lying grave. I put my hand on his shoulder. Leave it as a memorial of everything that was stolen from us, of the time we lost. We returned to our father's burial. When the casket was completely in the ground and people started throwing dirt, Raphael grabbed a handful and held it for a moment. 20 years ago, you buried me alive, he said, just loud enough for me to hear. Today I bury you for real. And unlike you, I'm going to move on. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to love whoever I want. I'm going to raise my daughter in a home without hatred. And I'm going to get to know my brother. You didn't win. He threw the dirt and turned around, wiping his hands on his pants. Let's get out of here. This place only has pain. I agreed, and we started walking toward the parking lot. My mother caught up with us, running awkwardly with her heels sinking into the wet grass. Raphael, please, give me a chance to explain everything, to ask for forgiveness properly. Raphael raised his hand, cutting her off. You had 20 years to look for me, to send me a message, an email, a letter, anything. You chose to do nothing. So no, Mom, I'm not going to give you that chance. Not now. And you? She looked at me desperately. Lucas, please. I know I was wrong, but I'm still your mother. Don't abandon me too. I looked at her. This woman who raised me, who took care of me, who also lied to me my entire life. I felt a confusing mixture of love, anger, pity, and disappointment. I need time, I finally said. I need to process all of this. You're not going to lose both sons, but you're also not going to have the son you had before, because I'm no longer that person. That person was built on top of lies. Now I need to discover who I really am. We left her there, crying in the rain, and went to the parking lot. Raphael unlocked a simple silver Civic. Want to get some coffee? Talk for real, without an audience, without drama? I nodded and got into his car. We went to a 24-hour coffee shop that was half empty. We sat at a corner table with 2 black coffees and a piece of lemon pie that we shared without thinking much about it. And we talked for hours about everything. Raphael told me about the first years after running away, how it was terrifying and liberating at the same time, how he worked 3 jobs while finishing high school, how he met Tiago, his husband, in a library where they both reached for the same book at the same time. Movie cliche, he laughed, but that's exactly how it was. He showed me more photos. Sophia learning to walk, Sophia at school, Sophia laughing, painting, hugging both parents. She knows about you, Raphael said softly. I always told her I had a little brother I didn't see, but whom I loved very much, that maybe one day she could meet her uncle. I said immediately. I want to meet her. And Tiago, I want to make up for lost time, if you'll let me. Raphael smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his entire face. I would love that, but it's going to be strange, right? We're going to have to get to know each other from scratch. Practically. Not from scratch. I corrected. We have memories. We have DNA. We have 20 years of shared pain. It's a strange foundation, but it's something. I showed him photos on my phone. From my graduation. From my wedding. Yes, I was married too. Of my wife Mariana. Of our apartment. You haven't told her yet, have you? Raphael asked about me. I shook my head. I haven't had time. This all happened like 6 hours ago. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. We had spent more than 4 hours in that coffee shop. She'll understand, Raphael said. If she truly loves you, she'll understand that this is big and she'll support you. He was right. I called Mariana right there. I told her everything through tears. She listened in silence and then said, bring him here now. I want to meet my resurrected brother-in-law. We laughed at that. Resurrected was technically accurate. We went to my apartment. Mariana opened the door before we even knocked. She pulled me into a tight hug and then, without hesitation, hugged Raphael too. Welcome back from the deceased, she said. And somehow the dark humor broke some of the tension. We stayed talking until 4 in the morning. Raphael called Tiago and put him on speaker. Love, guess what? My brother wants to meet us. And there's a wonderful sister-in-law here who's already planning a family barbecue. Tiago's voice came warm and welcoming. Seriously, man, what news? Sophia is going to freak out with joy. We arranged a lunch the following weekend. Raphael, Tiago, and Sophia would come to our city. We would get to know each other properly. We would start building what had been destroyed. When Raphael left in the early morning hours, we hugged for a long time at the door. Thank you, he whispered, for giving me this chance, for not hating me for leaving. I held him tighter. You didn't leave. You were expelled, and I could never hate you. You're my brother. Always were, always will be. That was 3 months ago. Today, Raphael and I talk almost every day through messages, through calls, sometimes video calls where Sophia appears to show me a new drawing or tell me about school. I met her in person 2 weeks after that lunch. She called me Uncle Lucas immediately, as if I had always been part of her life. Tiago is exactly the kind of person I would have chosen for my brother. Kind, funny, clearly in love with Raphael and their daughter. They built a beautiful family on top of the ashes of one that rejected Raphael, and I'm proud to now be part of it. My mother, she's in therapy, trying to process process the choices she made, the complicity in erasing one son to protect another. Raphael still doesn't want to talk to her. Maybe one day, or maybe not, and I completely respect that. I maintain contact because she's my mother, and despite everything, I still love her. But our relationship has fundamentally changed. It will never be what it was. We removed my father's name from our lives completely. We don't talk about him. We don't visit his grave. To us, he truly passed away 20 years ago, on the day he chose prejudice over his own son. Raphael's empty grave is still there. But now when I pass by it, and sometimes I pass by on purpose, I no longer feel pain. I feel anger for the stolen time. I feel sadness for what could have been. But I also feel something strange, something like hope. Because Raphael isn't in that grave. He's alive, happy, loved, and I have the chance to be in his life again. There are days when it still seems surreal that my deceased brother is alive 3 hours away, living an entire life I never knew existed. But I have a beautiful niece who hugs me and laughs at my bad jokes. That everything I knew about my family was a carefully constructed lie. But there are also days, more and more frequently, when it seems like the most natural thing in the world. Getting a message from Raphael asking how my day was. Making plans for holidays together. Teaching Sophia to ride a bike, just like Raphael did for me decades ago. Creating new memories on top of the old ones that were stolen. The truth is, you can't recover lost time. Those 20 years, those memories we never made, those stolen moments, they're gone forever. But you can choose what to do with the time that remains. You can choose anger and resentment, or you can choose to build something new.